Welcome to The Kid is in School, where we talk about whatever we want since our kid is not here to interrupt us. But we don't have a lot of time before the bell rings, so let's get right into it.
We have like this vacation time. I mean, at least everybody in the country, I guess, is having vacation time right now. Spring break is having people taking trips, having fun with that. And there's always somebody, friends or family that ask us, hey, you're going to take a trip, or you want to take a trip with us? This would be fun. And I don't think they understand what the life of a comedian is.
We don't take trips.
No, well, the thing is, we do take trips all of the time for work.
Our work is the trip.
Right. We don't take pleasure trips very much as comedians because it's just so much of the worst part of being a comedian is the travel. And I don't mean being in a place. I don't mean being in a city. Mm-hmm. I mean getting up, taking the flights, trains, planes, buses, automobiles, whatever we have to do to get to a gig. It's constant. It happens multiple times, at least a month for us.
And you've got it down to a nice little science, and still it bogs you down. It makes it unfun for you.
Oh, it's still the worst part. I would much rather have the Star Trek transporter technology where I just go into the living room, I transport over to the gig, and then I come back.
At the end of every actual trip where I leave my home, I always wish for the teleporter. It's not getting there. I think somehow getting there, I think about, I might get a Cinnabon at the airport, or I don't know what else I have in mind. But it's not, like I've told you before, it's the packing that's so hard for me. So I want to make sure I don't have what I need. And I don't know. But I hear you. If you could teleport everywhere. Is Elon Musk working on that?
Elon Musk probably already has it.
Oh, good.
And he's not sharing it.
No, they don't share. Billionaires don't share, do they?
He certainly transported some hair from different parts of his body to the top of his head. So I don't know what technology that was. But I
like to think of billionaires always answering. Anytime someone says, why don't you invent this? It's like, I didn't become a billionaire by wasting money on ideas like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something where I think that people usually don't travel. Most people who have a normal job, they live in whatever city, they live in Tacoma, and they go to their office job. So the time that they spend traveling is just a commute to their job. So maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the car, commuting to work. Some people have to travel longer in the car, but that's probably the average. They go and then they come home for dinner and they're home in the evening and they don't have to necessarily think about work too much, maybe an email or something like that. And they do that Monday through Friday and they have the weekends off. And comedians it's just such a different breed. Like, I don't think that it's not even fun to pull back the curtain and show everybody, but it's like, when do we work? Every single day. And when do we have off? Never.
Well, slow down for a second, because one, you're absolutely right to use the word commute. That's what travel is for us. It is getting to the gig. And if somebody for work had to travel, 2 to 5 hours every time to get to their office, I think they'd start realizing that it's not the same. But what made me laugh when you were describing the average person's work, you're like, then they go home and they don't have to think about work. I feel like all the articles I read about corporate America is that they don't know how to leave work at work. So that's one thing where I feel a little different as a comedian. The fun that we have on stage is like a lot more fun when we're working than it is for a person who has to
our actual
put a PowerPoint together.
Yes. So like being on stage, writing jokes, and making people laugh. That is the fun part of comedy. That's probably, they talk about like in the NFL, they go, we play the games for free. But what they're paying us for is practice and, in the workouts and all the time we invest into it. And that's kind of with comedy. It's like, yeah, I guess you could say we're performing for free. What you're paying me for is all the travel, all the preparation, all everything it takes to get to putting on a good show.
Right. All the weird conversations you have with people that come out of nowhere.
And there will be some.
Whether you're working for them.
During, and after the show.
Yeah. Whether you're working for them or they just saw your show and they want to talk to you. But yeah, I hear you. It is different. Suffice to say, whether we understand the plight of the corporate American person.
The working man.
No, we all do what we do for work and we all make our sacrifices. But unfortunately, like mini vacations is one of them. And, even summer vacations. I think more people plan around summer vacation. They think I've got this stretch of time. And the reason I know that is because I asked the kids' parents at our kids' school. I'm like, what are you guys doing for the break coming up? And they always have an answer. And they're like, how about you? And I'm like, just picturing myself eating cereal, living life the exact same way, checking the emails, responding to the avails, all that stuff.
Never occurred to me once to take a trip with our daughter or do anything like that during these breaks. And I don't know what these average people do. Like, the thing is, I think the life of a comedian is fairly incompatible with the life of a non-comedian. And I don't mean like we can't be friends or anything like that, but in terms of when we're free. So just an example, having dinner with somebody.
Right.
That's something that people do. They will have dinner at each other's homes. And for us, it's like, well, almost never can we do that. Like, and we certainly can't plan it a month in advance. Like, hey, what are you doing May 9th? Let's have dinner together at our house.
Right, because a show could pop up in the city where that's people watch the entertainment at dinner times.
Yes. And so I have to be getting ready. It had to be going out and performing when people would normally be like sitting down to dinner. I'm getting ready to go out. And so, but I'm free during the day. It's like, hey, I could do lunch. And people are like, I can't.
I know.
do
That's
lunch.
the same problem they have on their lunch break is like, I got to get back to work. It's so tight. I don't really think we could have a good convo.
Right.
Your dinner is their lunch break.
Right. And so with that, and that's like on a daily thing, just a simple 1 day thing. There are people that we know that have asked us to go on trips and vacation and, hey, we should go take, this isn't necessarily one of them, but just, we should go on a trip to Florida. Let's all go down to Disney World. It's like, well, I can't plan that out 6 months in advance. I know that you guys are planning something for July because you know that you're going to have that time off. And that's the way people schedule things. I get it.
Yeah.
You tell your bosses, hey, I'm going to be gone these dates and I'm putting in for my vacation time then. With us, it's so much easier to do spur of the moment things because I can be like, okay, you know what? I don't have anything this weekend. I can go out. Whereas even if it was something I planned 3 or 4 weeks in advance, I get called by clubs and different things all of the time on short notice. In fact, even during the week, if somebody said, hey, you don't have anything Saturday, you want to do something? It's like, okay, but a club could call me tomorrow and say, hey, somebody just dropped out. Can you come to Albuquerque this weekend?
Right.
And it's like, yes, I can. And I'd have to just drop whatever friends' plans. And I'm sure that is a bummer to people and they don't fully understand it. Like, why would you do that?
That's why you're friends with people who don't leave their home.
I love having friends that are agoraphobic.
Yeah, they just have a Call of Duty headset on.
They don't want to go out.
You'll see them at midnight to 3 a.m. and
They don't like people.
Happy.
we can text. They don't even want to talk.
Text. That's
Just text.
all of my friends text me. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I just I'm trying to fit in like an anecdote because I'm just being like annoying when you're like, we don't ever get to go on vacation. I'm like, what if someone offered you $10,000 to take me on vacation to a private island?
Well, then that's like a pet gig.
Yeah.
Of course, I say yes to gigs.
Robert Redford says, One Night with Your Wife. Do you remember that movie? I forget what it's called. Oh, Indecent Proposal. I remembered it now.
Except in this case, I'm spending the night with my own wife. He's paying me to spend.
No, that's not what I said.
No?
Well, I just said I just thought you were going to say, well, I'd have to turn it down, but for different reasons than availability. Like, it's a spontaneous offer. I'm just saying.
So who's going with whom is like my question now.
I'm Demi Moore and you're Woody Harrelson, and Robert Redford would be paying me
to go on vacation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the way that you phrased it was somebody's paying me to go on vacation with my wife.
My wife, yeah. Oh, I get it. I didn't include the indirect object, I guess.
So I'm I
could be an MLA handbook.
Yeah, why wouldn't I take $10,000 to go take my own wife on a trip?
Yeah, well, that's one instance in where I'm trying to get you to think of a movie I'm thinking of, but maybe I should pick movies that aren't 30 years old.
Well, the thing is about any sort of movie that's like 30 years old, you and I differ on this, but like you have certain movies that you watched as a child, and I have certain movies that I was allowed to watch as a child. Mm-hmm. So my introduction to different actors was different than maybe what the normal person would have been. I was just thinking, today I saw a poster or a probably just an Instagram thing, of Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger together. And I realized when I saw that, that's the first movie I ever saw of Arnold Schwarzenegger was Twins.
So you thought he was a funny comedian?
I thought he was a comedian.
Very tall, muscular comedian.
Nice. Especially in that movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in, decades, but like he was not just genetically and physically superior to Danny DeVito. It was also like personality and in morality. He was the good guy,
an upstanding citizen,
right? And so it was very difficult. It's not difficult, but it was interesting to see what Arnold Schwarzenegger's videography really is,
right?
When my first introduction is that, and then Kindergarten Cop was probably the next one I saw.
Yeah, he had the same haircut in both.
So he had the same haircut in probably in Commando also. But I remember seeing the trailer for Predator. Didn't see the movie until I was much older. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, are there actors like that you saw where you're like, oh, I had no idea they were like this?
Well, interestingly enough, this doesn't directly answer your question yet, but that was the first movie I think I remember seeing Danny DeVito in. But he pretty much stayed the same for me. I was like, that guy's funny, and he stayed funny. I feel like I've seen everybody in sequels before I saw them in their original films. So let's say Bill Murray, I saw him in Ghostbusters 2 before I saw him in Caddyshack or anything, or Ghostbusters 1. But what you're specifically asking was, did my first impression of somebody deviate from who they really are? I mean, the first impression I got of Daniel Craig was in Road to Perdition.
Okay, yes.
And he was this scurvy little...
scurvy little spider.
Scurvy little spider, as Jimmy Stewart would say. And then he was Bond. Like, I didn't catch him in between any other films. So everybody's trying to push him as Bond to me. And I'm like, this guy, he's the villain. He's the Bond villain.
Yeah, I
just couldn't buy it for a while.
I only remember those roles for him. I don't know anything in between either. I did, when you said sequels, I think I saw Ace Ventura... When Nature Calls before I saw Pet Detective.
Oh my goodness, that's never something you want to reverse. Those are not equal. The first one's so much funnier to me.
But the thing is, the second one, certainly for a lot of years, I found it funnier than the first one.
Right.
Probably because there's a lot of retread happening in the sequel.
Right.
But it's the first time I saw it. So then going back and watching the original, I'm like, okay, he's doing the alrighty thing again.
You see the original, you're like, this guy, what a hack.
This guy.
No, I like, there's like shakaka and guano.
Yes.
Like, there are good catchphrases in the second one you don't have in the first one. But it was so preposterous. Like, imagine him coming out of the decoy rhino and it looking like it's giving birth to him.
And that's the first thing I saw. Now, can you imagine, though, if your first time ever seeing a Jim Carrey movie was like Mr. Popper's Penguins or something like that?
Wow.
Or Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind.
That would be funny.
And just anything where you go, this is not, and then you go back and watch Dumb and Dumber or The Mask.
Yeah, you're like, why is he basing himself so low? You're this fine Daniel Day-Lewis style actor.
What is this? This is not so that's the way it was with me with Schwarzenegger. And let's see if I can think of like some fine actors. Maybe
I'm doing the opposite thing where I'm thinking of not what you asked, but my introduction to Michael Keaton was actually not Batman. For most kids, it might have been. It was Mr. Mom. So I saw him in his early comedian days, or his funny guy.
I actually saw Mr. Mom when I was a kid. I can't remember a single thing. I was too little, but I do remember seeing Mr. Mom and it playing.
We probably taped it off the TV because I remember watching it over and over and over again.
I'm sure we did too, or rented it at Blockbuster or something like that. And also for a little while there was some videotapes, VHS tapes that you could get at the supermarket. Maybe they had been rentals because supermarkets used to have rentals.
Yeah,
and so
did have a little section.
Then they would sell them for $1 or a couple bucks once they had rented them 1,000 times and people weren't renting Mr. Mom anymore. So
once the music goes.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the little the orchestra music would be warped on our video cassettes.
Yeah.
So you bought something like that?
Analog tape, yeah. I think we did. So we bought some that definitely were cheap. So we had that one, Mr. Mom, and The Man with One Red Shoe, which was a Tom Hanks movie.
Sounds good. Sounds like a remake of an original from the 60s.
I don't know. I honestly, it's going to be hard for me to remember anything other than the box art. So Mr. Mom was him, Michael Keaton dealing with like kids. He's like maybe in pajamas on the front of a yellow VHS tape cover. Mm-hmm. And Man with One Red Shoe was just Tom Hanks' face and a big red shoe.
Nice.
And that's it. So it doesn't tell you anything about the plot.
He plays Ronald McDonald.
Yeah. Carrie Fisher, I believe, is in that as well.
That's cool.
But those are the only things I really remember. I know at one point he only has one shoe, and there's some sort of mystery about that.
I'm not even sure you even watched these movies. You just studied the cassette
It's a long time ago.
covers.
Yeah.
But that was my intro to Michael Keaton, whereas you probably, do you remember him from Batman first?
No, I think I saw Mr. Mom first because but definitely saw Batman and loved that.
So let me just talk about actors, and you tell me where you saw him first.
Okay.
Robert De Niro.
I think maybe Robert De Niro was Cape Fear.
Aha.
Because that would have been maybe a PG-13 movie that I would be allowed to watch. I think by the time it came out, I was 13-ish.
So he was like a villain in that one, a psycho killer. And then after that, he became like, well, he was never the romantic lead, but he was always the dramatic romantic lead, like in Raging Bull.
Yes, Bull.
I was going to say Bull Durham. I always swap the titles.
I think there is a movie named Bull, which I think might be a... Gosh, I don't know.
That's a character on Night Court.
There is that one.
I don't remember a movie named Bull, but
yeah,
if you think of it...
I think there is, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of... Al
Pacino. My first Al Pacino film, I think, was Scent of a Woman.
Oh, I saw... My first one would have been Dick
classic.
Tracy. But I didn't know it was Al Pacino because he's Mr. Big, I think.
You caught him way late. You didn't see Godfather till later, huh?
No, but that's the thing. Even Cape Fear, I didn't see that when it came out. I saw that probably when I was in high school or something like that.
This one's easy for me. Diane Keaton. I saw her in Baby Boom first, and she was almost 40. I think she was like 37 or something. So she had already done Godfather. She had done... Stop. You can't laugh just because I said the words Baby Boom. You hate when I reference that film.
I'm laughing at that and also Diane Keaton, where it's like, I don't have a clue where I saw Diane Keaton.
She was in Godfather. Yes, you do. Listen, I have to say something else. Annie Hall. Isn't that the name of the movie?
Yes.
That was her big breakout role. I mean, her on the scene in foray into big films was Godfather, which I didn't even recognize her when I finally saw her in that. I was like, who's this lady with the puffy curly hair?
I mean, it might not have even been a decade before, but...
She didn't have a turtleneck.
Annie Hall's
she didn't have pants up to her chest.
Early 70s, by the way. Annie Hall's like early, mid-70s. So way before I was born. So I didn't see her in that. And I wouldn't have seen that until I was in high school or college.
Let me just remind you when we grew up. We grew up in an era where you could watch some movie from the 60s on Nick at Night. All right? So don't tell me that because it came out a certain year, you weren't exposed to it at a certain time.
It's not just about the year. You have to remember that I wasn't allowed to watch any like PG-13 movies or rated R movies. I didn't see those until I was in high school or college. So I think that Annie Hall's rated PG-13. And it's a Woody Allen movie, which I don't think I would have been allowed to watch a Woody Allen movie even. So I didn't see those until much, much later. And so
if I say...
I would have probably, if there's a Diane Keaton movie, it's probably something where it's like, she's not in this, but it would be something like a Mrs. Doubtfire role that she was in.
This episode should be called Lost in the Weeds, because I am trying to find you and get you on my page, and you're like, woman. So if I tell you Bridget Fonda, your first Bridget Fonda film, you probably can't even think of any that she's in.
Probably would have been Jackie Brown.
Well, there you go. And mine was Shag.
Okay.
You're right. When you said Mrs. Doubtfire, I should have said, okay, Sally Field, my first Sally Field movie. Was Steel Magnolias, but for you, your first Sally Field, was it Forrest Gump or Mrs. Doubtfire?
It would have been, I don't know which one came out first, but
whichever came out first.
Probably Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, probably, right?
Yeah, that's my guess. But
I don't know. Hard to say, because Forrest Gump was definitely 94. It was just so firmly planted in 1994.
Also, just remember, you're talking to a man that used to be a boy. And Sally Field and Diane Keaton were not high on my list of actors or actresses that I wanted to see in a movie.
Well, can I remind you that you began with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I am a woman that used to be a girl. So
I didn't say I didn't ever ask what your first Arnold Schwarzenegger movie was.
I thought you were. I thought you were saying, you said whatever actor came to mind, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So for me, I was talking about Diane Keaton, but you're like, don't bring me into your weird Diane Keaton
that's
movies.
fine for you, but I don't know. I will never come up with. Maybe it was Annie Hall when I saw her. Annie Hall when I was 20 years old or something like that. I was trying to think back to childhood. Now you did. Maybe it's because you saw all the movies that your mom rented.
For sure. Well, I didn't see all of them. There were some that I wish I could have seen, like Sex, Lies, and Videotape. She would get a kid movie for us, like Garbage Pail Kids, and then we'd watch it and eat our Domino's pizza, and then she'd send us up to bed, and she would put in a movie that was PG-13 or older. And I just, because it had the word sex in it, I was like, sex, Mom, you can't watch a movie about sex.
And I don't even think that's in it.
You can't watch a movie. Go upstairs.
Yeah, it's.
I don't even know if it's a comedy. I never looked into that film.
I have no idea. It's something that sounds like a very early '90s type of film.
It does, and it feels like it was like critic adored, possibly showed up at the Oscars. Don't you feel like it was just one of those things?
I don't know if it's that one. There's a bit early Ben Stiller film. And I don't know if it's that one or if it's a different name, but like it's a very early '90s type of feel where it's like this is definitely Gen X. Like now we're taking over Hollywood type of thing.
I liked when Gen X took over Hollywood. It was a little bit gritty. I was too young to appreciate it, and now looking back on it, it's like, oh, they had their moment.
I guess
it was so much better than when millennials took over Hollywood. Boring.
I guess I don't,
because I'm thinking of things like, what's that horrible teen? I'm just thinking of like teen sex comedies, like where someone has like whipped cream on their boobs.
That's still Gen X that was creating those.
Oh, good. Okay, never mind then.
Yeah,
they suck.
All of the there's
American Pie. You know, like things that were praised as like these are great comedies. For me, it was so crass. It was just like this era of crass comedies, and I was such a prude.
There was as a teen. Some movie with James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, James, get back on Dawson's Creek, my friend.
Yeah, that kind of era of stuff is kind of funny to look back on because it's like I know in the moment because I would have been a young teenager when some of those were coming out and thinking that I guess I thought that was cool because they were slightly older than me, you know, five, maybe 10 years. If I was 15, they were 25. They seem like full on adults. And so now looking back, I'm like, first of all, the eyebrows were way too thin on women. Like it was barely a little line above.
Where did the eyebrows go? They went on vacation for a while.
Yeah, extreme plucking was.
I think they went over to Italy. If you watch their movies in that era and all the women have like very unruly brows, then you'll know what happened. You're right. It was a look. It was a very stylized look. And if we had any listeners that were from that era, they've all stopped listening because of our disrespect. And even probably our peers who were like, I liked American Pie. Maybe you can like it. I just liked Austin Powers so much better. You know, like I like silly, goofy comedies because I was like an immature, I guess, kind of teen that was still had her Barbies in her room, but she wasn't going to admit it to the people in her school. No,
there's certain movies like Austin Powers which are timeless. I think that because of who wrote it, which is Mike Myers, a comedy legend, but also great at creating characters and creating storylines that were he was bringing the 60s into the 90s, kind of meshing these two worlds. But it's also a parody of James Bond, and he's able to take those elements and take some British humor and throw it in there. It's timeless. I watched, was it last weekend I was out of town? And I was in the hotel room and Scary Movie 2 was on.
Scary Movie 2, that was funny. That was like a Top Gun style, not Top Gun, sorry, Naked Gun style.
It is. It's very
broad comedy.
Very broad and farcical, but there is no plot. There's none. Like my opener was watching with me and it was like we were watching, we're laughing at it, but it is a series of short little sketches thrown together with this general overarching theme of they're in a haunted house type of thing.
Right.
But they're doing parodies of Nike commercials. You know, there's a whole, probably one of the longest, scenes, jokes is them dribbling balls like a Nike commercial. And it's funny enough, but there's some things where I'm like, if you didn't grow up in this era, you'll never get some of these references. It's references to pop culture and movies of that time.
Right. I forgot about that. It's so tough with comedies that reference pop culture because of an era, because they really hit home in that moment, but then they can get stale fast.
Yeah.
But did Scream have much of a plot? I mean, they're just trying to follow. Scream didn't take place in a haunted house, so I know that Scary Movie 2 was a departure. But Scream was just like, how would you even describe that? One woman is terrorized by someone, and so is everybody around her because of. You can't spoil it, but you have to be like.
I think Scream had a plot. I think
the plot is it's okay. Mike Myers has more of a plot. Like Halloween, has more of a plot than Scream. I loved Scream, by the way. I'm not going to knock it.
Well, I think there's a difference.
It sucked me in.
I think that Scary Movie 2 is written by all of the Wayans.
Yeah.
Everyone seemed to have a credit on there. And it was just meant to be silly and goofy. Whereas Scream there was some humor to it, but it was kind of a send up of all of these scary movies. So it's kind of
right. It was supposed to be an homage to horror.
Yeah. So all the horror
Jamie
movies.
Kennedy talking about that.
Yeah. So they're that, but they're also kind of stepping out of it and kind of breaking down the fourth wall with, not really the fourth wall to us because they're not talking to the camera, but they're talking about horror conventions.
Right. Maybe that's why it worked so well.
Yeah.
So it was reinventing horror, or it was reigniting your passion for horror without using some of the old tropes.
Yes. So,
we really should have. We could have been movie critics, except I can't remember any movie title, and you can't remember any actor's name. So we would just be dancing around the topics
and
a
the
lot.
thing, what year? I don't know what year it came out, and you'll give some sort of criticism like this wasn't any good, and I go, actually, it had this thing, and you go, oh, I agree with you now.
Yeah. You're right. You've completely changed my mind. That's what Siskel and Ebert should have been. Disagreeing at the top, and then
Changed my mind.
One person has a change of heart.
Yeah.
In fact, let's do that every episode from here on out. People will find it endearing.
Yeah.
We fight at the beginning, and then we come together at the end, like an episode of Full House.
Yeah, we'll try it right now. Is there a movie that you've seen within the last week that you could give a short critique to?
Well, I'm watching Alaska Daily right now, which feels like a movie.
It's not a movie.
It's a TV show, but it stars an Oscar-winning actress in Hilary Swank. Does that sound right? Hilary Duff? Hilary Swank.
It was definitely Hilary Swank. Hilary Duff did not win an Oscar.
No, but now that I say Swank out loud, isn't that such an unusual last name? There is no other Swank I've ever heard of in my life.
Is there like Swanky Affairs?
Is that a name of... Is that a rapper? Who is Swanky Affairs?
Not who.
Oh, you mean like a nice soiree, a nice party,
Yes.
a swanky affair.
Yeah, is there a Swanky Affair? Although that should be my stage name.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Swanky Affairs. If we ever perform together in a show that is inconsequential, we get to make up each other's intro.
That would be fun.
And I'll call you Swanky Affairs.
Well, I just watched RoboCop again, as an adult.
Okay, yeah.
So I can give a short. It's a very interesting film, especially for the time, because I know there's satire to it, which it's kind of a dystopian look at what Detroit would be in at the time, the near future. Because
it's so crime ridden, the only thing that can handle it is some kind of machine.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's crime ridden. Yes, it's crime ridden, but the police force is possibly going to go on strike. But there's a company that kind of is in charge of the police department.
Overfunding the police department?
Sort of. But they basically are the bosses of the police department, but it's a corporation. And so they are creating, one guy creates like this giant robot to take over the police force. You don't need actual humans if you got this.
So the dystopian element is, they're taking our jobs, but it's robots.
No,
taking our jobs. It's not about that? Okay,
that is not the dystopian part. The dystopian is that everything is horrible. It's the dark, bleak look at the future.
Gotcha. And no human should have to face that, so we'll send in our machine.
Yeah, and so then they have RoboCop is a combination of a human and a robot, because you've added the human element that a machine couldn't do.
Interesting.
And so,
I've actually seen this movie and I forgot all about it.
Yeah. So overall, I will say it's a pretty good movie. And as far as 80s movies go, it translates pretty well to today. And I know they remade it and ruined it a few years ago.
Why'd they do that? I didn't know that. Yeah. Who plays the RoboCop in the new one?
I don't know.
Colin Farrell?
No, I don't know.
Oh, that's, yeah. So you didn't even see it?
I did see it. I saw it like on a flight or something like that.
And you said, I want to forget that I ever know you, sir.
It was really forgettable. And even the RoboCop suit was wrong. You know, it's something where it's like, oh, it's almost like CGI on top of the guy. It's not, but, you know, whereas the practical effects are in the original RoboCop.
Nice.
And that always seems...
I can't wait
better to me
till we get yes it does to me too, but I can't wait till we get dunked on by kids of our daughter's generation when they look back at all of our practical effects and are just like, it's like I can see puppet strings here. What are you guys doing?
See, I don't know, because as the Star Wars shows are showing that they're going back to practical effects. They do have some CGI people, but like a lot of that is puppets again.
I enjoy
actual
it.
practical effects.
Is that why I love it so much? Because it's a person in there moving his hand around.
Yeah, it's a person in his... Yes, like a sock puppet.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. The listeners can't see me making a sock puppet motion. That's cool. I always thought at the onset of CGI that it was going to be too expensive and they were going to abandon it. Isn't that funny?
It's actually much cheaper, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, they figured it away.
Yeah, I think it was even cheaper 30 years ago, and that's why they started doing it so much, because the cost of one or a team of people working on a computer and generating these images is cheaper than a team of people that you have to employ to create the practical effect, to actually employ the effect, to also then videotape it or, record it.
You have computers are taking our jobs.
You have to have people directing it, whereas it's just less people involved.
I used to want to be an animator, and I was inspired by little Disney vignettes where they'd show actual Disney artists drawing, and they'd show them lifting up a page and putting it down. And
it's always from the 50s, too.
Yeah, it was. But then right around... I guess it was middle school, they started talking about you can use a computer to make your artwork. And they had classes on it. And I was like, no, thank you. That's not pencil to page.
That's not art.
There's no future in that.
Yeah.
And then it just kept doing that. And kids now like draw on tablets. And I can't tell like what is from your mind and what was, enhanced by the computer here.
Yeah. Well, now they're, because I had the similar thing with photography. Like I took photography in high school. And then in high school, they were transitioning from film to digital. So I did film. I went in a dark room. I would do all of that, developing the film, developing the pictures. But we also started with digital stuff. And now digital is basically taken over. Now we're now going to another phase, I'm hearing, not just digital, but AI. So AI is taking over where there's no actual model. You're not taking a picture of anything. It's just all created by a computer.
Yeah, it's my same dilemma. It's like, unless you know HTML code or whatever.
HTML code.
If you know zeros and ones, you can enter into this computer world, Neo. But yeah, people like me are at a loss, or, professional photographers no longer need to show up on location because it can be done in a studio. That's what you're saying. That's crazy. Although I do like that young women won't be getting taken advantage of or being sent to Paris away from their mommies.
Well, now
at age 13.
We talked about like how there has been a misrepresentation of what humans look like already when you have an actual human being model, but they've been airbrushed and computer altered, so their waist is slimmer or their muscles are bigger or their skin looks a different way than it actually does in real life. And that's what sometimes with makeup, like practical effects or CGI or just Photoshop. Well, we're now going to get to the place where there's no human there at all. So the distortions of what a body can look like is you can have somebody that actually has the proportions of Barbie, which, is impossible in real life. But
It'll start to look normal now.
Yes, and
Because
so-
we've combined realistic looking skin with unrealistic proportions.
right, and if people are having trouble already,
I know.
with body issues, wait until the computers are fully taken over and telling us what they think we should look like.
Go away, you are hideous. That's what your computer's going to say when you sit down at it. I mean, we could take this a lot of different directions. Where it makes my mind go is how you can now pay for verification on Instagram. Did you see that pop up?
I did.
And then immediately there was backlash to it in my feed. Like, I just saw people making up raps about it, like, don't pay for your badge. And people making up little sketches and about how lame it is. But the fact that I think some people just, what was the number? Something like 400, I'm going to say the wrong number, by the way, but 40 million people paid for badges, or 44 million people paid for badges. And the idea that it appealed to so many, even though, clearer heads can prevail and say like, But yeah, I know I don't need to look at a badge anymore now that it's purchasable. And so to me, what was the point of that? You're talking about AI. Oh, it's kind of how like, anybody can do this job. If you're good at working with a computer, now anybody can be a photographer. At least that's like the knee-jerk assumption. I feel like the same thing is true for influencing or just representing yourself on social media. But it's gonna be messing up a lot of self-esteem, I think.
Yeah.
Along with the weird proportioned AI models.
Yeah, well, it might mess up the self-esteem of the people creating these things too. Like, somebody thinks they're an artist and that they're very talented at something when all they're doing is clicking a couple buttons on a computer and it's generated. And I've seen some of the AI art. Have you seen something like this AI art?
I guess so.
And I didn't even know what it was at first. It just popped up a few weeks ago.
It looks very realistic. It'll be like, man in Times Square, and he has a horn coming out of his head. And you're like, what is the deal with this guy? And then it'll say AI art.
Yes, and I saw it with like former presidents. Somebody went through and had AI art where it's all the former presidents if they were professional wrestlers.
Right.
And it's funny, but it's also weird because it almost looks like a painting, but it's not. It's just a computer generated image.
There was one I liked that was celebrities that died at young ages if they had lived today, and it just shows like age progression, but it's much better age progression than you ever saw on a milk carton. Like, it's more for, remember like in the 90s when they would say this child has been missing for 10 years, here's what they could look like today, and it's like,
it's because it was a police sketch artist trying to like go
really.
off like, oh, let's just
lengthen the forehead a bit.
Let's take a picture of their dad, and then Timmy, he looks like him, but
yeah, somehow you grew up to be Frankenstein. I'm sorry, but that's who I'm looking for. It's a strange new world.
I know. Well, that's the thing is that because of social media, because of all of this, the images are distorting what we think about humanity and what we think about ourselves. But then are there benefits to that? I mean, there's the hacking, life hacks, those kind of things.
I thought of one.
Okay.
Let's get AI comedians. How about I just do the voiceover for my bits, and then you watch a AI on a computer screen at your club. Like, you can go out to the club, but it will be like a hologram of me, and I get to stay home in my pajamas.
That disgusts me.
No,
on every level.
It's teleportation. It's right back to what you
teleportation?
wanted. Yeah, you get to do your own material and your own voice. You just don't have to be there. That's my point. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of the AI.
Well, see, the problem is they will just cut you out completely, and just the AI comedian will just self-generate jokes, and you're unnecessary.
I really hate that. I see that on Instagram all the time. And I love nail polish, so I have this nail blog, and I'm seeing my nail friends kind of post like, I asked AI to write a poem about nail polish, and what do you guys think of it? And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about it because I think that's weird.
I asked AI to write a poem about this, and it's almost like they want to have some sort of validation. See, I asked it to do it, therefore
you don't
praise
get any
me.
credit in this. Exactly, Luke. That's exactly what bothered me about it. I'm like, why did you do that? What are you getting out of this? So I didn't even read it. But I did hear you say life hacks. I'm a little bit hacked out, to be honest. Like, I love a good hack. I used to bookmark these BuzzFeed articles about here's 5 things you're doing wrong that you could be doing better. And it would say something like, tie your shoes in this special knot so that you never have to untie them. You can just slip your shoe in. You remember that one? Mm-hmm. But now it's like, you're peeling a hard-boiled egg wrong. And it's like, look, if I write down every single, it's Instagram. So if I save every little video about these hacks, I'm going to...
And they're
never have time to do them.
the people are always astonished by their own hack too. It's like, just turn the pineapple this direction, and they slice and they just have this shocked look on their face. I'm like, you're the one that made the video.
I know.
Why are you shocked? Yeah.
That, and also they'll show someone else has already done the hack, and they're like, I have to try this for myself, and then they do the hack and it actually works. Like, what is that? Someone's already done the reveal. You're doing a second reveal?
I know. It's like if somebody took our jokes and go, here's Luke's special. Now let's see if these jokes work if I tell them.
Exactly. Wow, they actually got a laugh. I'm amazed. Look how good I am at doing someone else's comedy. Some of the hacks work. One guy's hack got widely panned in the comments. I thought it was so funny. He was like, you've been using your shaker wrong. What you need to do, instead of just like, and he shakes his hand to watch salt come out, he like takes the lid and he seesaws it back and forth from the cylinder of the tube, and of course it just all comes piled out on the plate. It's like seasoned salt, Lowry seasoned salt, and everybody's like, why would you want to season your food, and why is it called a shaker? Why not just open the lid and dump it all on the plate? Like whatever this guy was trying to achieve did not get the regular. And I think he led wrong. He led with it like, here's how you've been stupid all these years, and it's like, why don't you just have a soft sell? Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this? You know what I mean?
I think what
He's
I'll do,
losing his audience.
we should do is fake like life hacks and go, you've been doing this wrong the whole time, and just take a ketchup bottle and bang ourselves in the head.
Yeah, really.
And that's it. That's the end of the hack.
That's the calorie saving ketchup.
Yeah. You've been eating ice cream wrong, and just smash it on our foreheads.
Knock yourself unconscious, and you don't eat. You don't get the calories. Thanks for joining us today. If you had a great time, let us know on social. Follow Kid is in School on Twitter and The Kid is in School on Instagram. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. Be sure to throw us one of those 5-star ratings and share with your friends. Oh, and do it quickly before the kid gets home.